The nightcap in the NFL. The Bills at the Chargers. Bills favored by 12.5 on the road against the reeling Chargers. No Justin Herbert, no Keenan Allen, no Joey Bosa, all that stuff. And meanwhile, Buffalo coming on like gangbusters here, guys. Now, they've won 2 in a row. They're 8-6 on the season. And they are the trendiest team, I think, in the NFL right now, where it's like, look out for Buffalo. Here they come. Cowherd this week said they're going to win the Super Bowl, right? They're getting there out of the AFC. And I don't know what you guys think, but it was a great performance last week against the Cowboys. They smacked them around. But is a 2-game winning streak and an 8-6 record enough for you to say, oh, here they come. Here comes Buffalo? I am not there at all.
I've been there for a while, and you guys know how I feel about Josh Allen. I'm not a late adopter here. I believe that the Bills were a better team than they've been characterized as all season long. And I think that Josh Allen kind of unfairly has been left holding the bag for some of the other problems that the Bills have this season. Josh Allen isn't the problem. He's the solution to the problem. And if you look at the wins, the past 2 weeks were really impressive. But look at some of the losses over the last 5 games. The OT loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, that was a nail-biter down to the wire. Yep. The loss to the Denver Broncos, who are a good football team regardless of what happened last week. They are a well-coached team who are dangerous, who have a talented quarterback. And when you have a couple of those things aligned for you, that's a team that could beat anybody in the league, and the Broncos have proven that. And that was a near loss to the Denver Broncos. So they've gone 3 out of the last 5. They beat the snot out of the Jets and then beat the Super Bowl champs from a year ago in the Chiefs. Lost by only 2 in OT to the other team in the Super Bowl during that 5-game span, and absolutely curb stomped the Cowboys last week at home. And they're playing against a team in the Chargers who, look, the Chargers are in that spot, and I've been on teams, well, I should say really only one team in my entire life like this, where the season's over. Nobody's playing for each other anymore there. Everybody's playing for their film, for their next opportunity, for end-of-the-year awards, Pro Bowl berths, or numbers that will help them hit incentives. Like, this is... the ship's going down, and the rats are fleeing for the upper decks. It's just this is what it looks like when a regime changes and there's uncertainty in the future. You're not going to see a composed Chargers football team go on and take the field at SoFi. This isn't going to be like an Antonio Pierce situation with the Las Vegas Raiders where there was still a survivable situation for Las Vegas. Like, the season's over in LA.
Yeah, and so usually from a betting standpoint, you do get a bit of a dead cat bounce the week after the coach is firing. For example, the Panthers actually covered the spread the week after Frank Reich got fired. Now, they didn't win the game. They did win later. They've won a couple games, actually, since the firing. But we've seen teams kind of, that's why it's a finance term, dead cat bounce, like a stock's just getting absolutely pummeled, and then all of a sudden you see this uptick randomly, and that's kind of what sometimes you can expect. Now, I'll give you the details of what the Chargers are going to be up against today. So the outside linebacker coach, is it GIF or JIF, right? That's the running joke.
Yeah.
It's spelled GIFF. We'll go with JIF. JIF Smith takes over the interim head coaching duties. John Timu is going to coach the defensive line because they also fired the defensive line coach. You've got the defensive quality control coach, Robert Muschamp. He's going to take on a bigger role with the outside linebackers because JIF Smith's going to get moved to the interim head coach role. And then you've got the defensive coordinator, Derek Ansley, who has not called defensive plays all year because Brandon Staley's the guy. He now will call the defensive signals for the Chargers. So, again, a lot of movement. But sometimes when those things happen, you get a little bit of a bounce in productivity. Back to Rich's point and to Colin's point about the Bills. They've lost 6 games this year. They've all been by a single score. And you watch these games every single Sunday, guys. It's one play in either direction that tilts the game usually. They lost to the Jets week 1 in overtime. They lost to the Jaguars week 5 by 5. They lost to the Patriots, which is looking like a bizarre loss now, on the road in Week 7 by 4. And then again, the recent string of losses, that Bengals game was tight on the road. Joe Burrow was still there. The Broncos game, 12th guy on the field. Broncos, missed the field goal, get the bonus there, and they kicked the extra point there, and they kicked the second one that wins, and then the Eagles one was in overtime too. So again, 6 losses this year, all by a whisker. 1 or 2 plays in either direction, and those games tilt the other way. And this is a very different narrative about this Buffalo team. If they're, let's say, 10-4 instead of 8-6, right? So this is, I could see it. I could see them making a run down the stretch. I could see that, the Sean McDermott story kind of being a galvanizing moment for them. But I would be surprised if we see their best stuff in this game today.
This is a classic team where we only look at one side of the coin, where it's all these close losses. How about their close wins? Okay? They beat the Chiefs because Kadarius Toney couldn't line up correctly.
Sure.
Okay? They barely pulled that one out by 3 points. How about the win earlier this season against the Giants when Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback on Sunday Night Football? And what was it? Darren Waller got, hog-tied on the final throw into the end zone, right? There could have easily been pass interference, and who knows what happens there. The Giants at that time were a disaster. And the Bills barely won that game. I know they're in a much better spot, and it's a long season. And I think there's more value in the NFL especially of who's playing hot right here, right now, because that does matter a ton. But I think that if we're going to look at the close losses, we got to look at the close wins also.
I agree.
And when it's all said and done, this Bills team, they've had a couple of significant injuries defensively. And Josh Allen's thrown 14 interceptions. Think about this. He didn't throw it very much at all last week. He only had 15 passing attempts because James Cook in the running game were crushing the Cowboys. But that broke a string of an interception in 9 straight games. He's second in interceptions this year. Only Sam Howell has thrown more picks than Josh Allen. So listen, Josh Allen, I'm with you, Rich. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. But these interceptions, they can come back to bite you, and that's where you lose close games. It's not just fluky stuff. The flukiest thing that happened this year led to a win when Kadarius Toney couldn't line up correctly. So they have a tendency of shooting themselves in the foot when it matters most. And sorry, 3 out of 4 wins is not enough for me to come on board. Look out for Buffalo. They're barely over 500. Yeah, have fun with them.
Here's the reason why I disagree. I think that this narrative started game 1 of the season when Josh Allen against Aaron Rodgers absolutely laid an egg. And that was in a game that they should have won because Aaron Rodgers was injured within 4 plays. And I think that narrative has followed them the rest of the season. I think everybody saw that opening game, and there were so many eyeballs on that game. And they made the decision that, wow, you know what? This is who Josh Allen is. He's a big game choke artist. He's a guy who you're going to love his intangibles, but he just makes those bonehead plays sometimes that can lose the Bills some games. And that is true. You got to take the bad with the good with Josh Allen. But there is so much good. I understand that they have a lot of close wins, but this is close wins with certain teams are very different than close wins with others. I look at the close wins all season long with the Minnesota Vikings last year, and I would agree with your thought process if we were talking about that team with that quarterback a year ago, because they were kind of fraudulent. They were hiding some of their issues in plain sight, and they got found out real quick hosting the Giants in the postseason. They got their break speed off. But I don't look at the Bills like I look at the Minnesota Vikings or other teams who are close win artists or look like they could be suspect to get picked off in the opening round of the postseason should the Bills make it. And I think they will because they're red hot right now. Because because they have an elite quarterback. And that tilts the balance in your favor. Kirk Cousins with the Minnesota Vikings and all those close wins last year, there isn't a single thing about his game that's elite. I look at Josh Allen, and you look at the arm talent and the escapability and the improvisation and some of those moments in good games, big games for the Bills where he saves the day. Yeah, you're going to have the interceptions, but also look at the touchdowns. Look at the touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, he's one of the best and most talented quarterbacks in this league, and we're holding that one stat against him. Guess what? If you throw the football a lot in the end zone, you're going to throw a lot to the other team too sometimes, and that's the case with Josh Allen.
Yeah, the turnover-worthy plays are a little bit down this year, and the big-time throws are also a little bit down. I think overall they've been just a bit of a different offense this season. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't think this is some kind of like wake-up call, but I do think that they're playing the type of football. Like, let's be fair to what the preseason odds told us. This was the Super Bowl favorite preseason. Like, them just making the playoffs does not deserve this, oh, wow, like, oh, my goodness, watch out for Buffalo. They were the preseason favorite to win the Super Bowl. They should be in the playoffs. They should, frankly, have a better record, but they don't because of the mistakes that Brian talked about. And I agree. I think one of those mistakes will eventually be their undoing. But if you were going to ask me if the playoffs started today, what is one team in the AFC that I wouldn't want to face? I would put Josh Allen and Buffalo on that list. Does that mean that they're going to run through the playoffs and make Super Bowl? No, I think there's more disciplined, button-up teams in the NFL this year. I think the Ravens and the Chiefs on the AFC side are still kind of those two teams that I would look for. But it is Josh Allen, and they're hot right now. They're going to make the playoffs because they face the Chargers and the Patriots over the next 2 weeks. They're going to win 10 games, and they're probably going to get a Dolphins team that has nothing to play for in the last week. And my guess is they're the first wild card team in the AFC. Just my hunch. And then we'll see what happens on the road in the playoffs. We'll see if they can come together, because I do think that the moment for them when it was all the turmoil around McDermott and the 9/11 story, and they went on the road to Kansas City, and I know it wasn't easy, but they won the game. Sometimes you just have to see one go through the hoop when you're a team that's dealing with adversity, and they were able to overcome it, and they've played well. Maybe that's kind of the galvanizing moment for this team. We'll see. But the next 3 weeks, we're not going to learn much. We won't learn much until the wild card weekend.
I like how this Josh Allen / Bills thing has become Rich O v. No. And we were just sparring. We're left.
I'm kind of in the middle.
Jabs.
Although I'm kind of on your side, Brian. I'm not buying. I'm not fully buying into this Bills thing.
Well, to be perfectly fair, it's not the greatest timing when they're taking on the Chargers tonight, but
and the Patriots next week in a revenge game.
We're looking at the season collectively, where I think it's the opposite, Rich. When you go back to the game against the Jets, and you're right, that was a big disappointment, and that hurt Josh Allen's rep and the way that you look at him. That was a perspective-shifting loss when you lose to an Aaron Rodgers-less Jets team. And the way the Jets pulled that out was ridiculous. But I think that Josh Allen right here, right now, he's getting more flowers than he deserves because of what he's done before this year. Because if you talk about the touchdowns to interceptions, just the differential, Josh Allen's plus 12. There are plenty of other quarterbacks that are better when it comes to that are not getting the flowers that Josh Allen is getting. Jordan Love is plus 14, Packers quarterback. Is he getting as much love? Jared Goff is plus 16. He's not getting as much love. Tua's plus 15. That's better. Not getting as much love. So forth and so on. You got guys like Baker Mayfield plus 16. You've got Derek Carr in the same neighborhood plus 11. None of these guys are getting the flowers that Josh Allen is getting. And a lot of that has to do with we've seen him do this repeatedly in other seasons. But all this stuff about, look out for this playmaker. And all, in my mind, it's tied more so to pre-2023 than just 2023. And don't get me wrong, he's still a very good quarterback. But these turnover-prone plays that he has, they can kill you. And it has before when it matters most.
I think that the Bills have put Josh Allen in a situation this season at times where he's felt like he's needed to do more than he's actually needed to do. And firing their offensive coordinator mid-season felt, honestly, a little bit like a knee-jerk reaction to some of the heat and the pressure that Sean McDermott was facing this season, and it felt like appeasement a little bit as opposed to the best football decision at the time, because continuity is important to a quarterback. Now, things have recovered well since that point, and I think the narrative has shifted back more in favor of the Bills. And I think the Bills remind me a lot of the Ravens in a lot of ways. They're a team that plays better with a lead. They're built like front runners. I think Josh Allen is more comfortable playing with a lead. But I actually trust Josh Allen more trailing than I do Lamar Jackson. You know, you mentioned a lot of quarterbacks there, Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield and Tua Tagovailoa and you know, the others on that list who have a better touchdown to interception margin this year. However, would you trade a single one of them for Josh Allen? The answer is no. Josh Allen has elite intangibles that Tua Tagovailoa certainly doesn't have, Jared Goff certainly doesn't have, that Baker Mayfield certainly doesn't have, that Jared Goff definitely doesn't have. And in big moments, he has produced some amazing plays based on his intangibles. So I agree that Josh Allen is not the perfect quarterback. He's never going to be Tom Brady. He's never going to be, you know, Drew Brees when he's on a heater, or Peyton Manning, the sheriff. But he has certain aspects to his game that I think get overlooked when the Bills overall are struggling because, like quarterbacks often do, he's given more blame when they're losing, and he's given too much credit when they're winning at times as well. So I really look at it this way. If you're a quarterback on a good football team with intangible greatness like Josh Allen has, and I do think the Bills overall are a good enough team to make a deep run in the postseason, well, then you have my trust and my faith. And I saw this a month ago with the Bills. They just needed to put together some of those wins and to borrow the phrase that Jared used, to see the ball go through the hoop and build that confidence. And I think that win over the Chiefs is kind of what's propelling them into this home stretch kick, and that may last into the postseason.
But how long does it last?
That's true.
Because that game took place on December 10th. The Super Bowl is not until February, I think, 12th. Right?
Goodness gracious.
Like, so because it's kind of funny because, and Rich, I know you know this because this is like a phrase that I love that I'm sure winning cures a lot.
It
right?
does.
Like there could be a rotting carcass in the locker room. If you win the game, it doesn't smell as bad. It just, and I think it's going really well right now, and it will go really well for the next 2 weeks because they're going to be a double-digit favorite this week. They are, and they're going to be a double-digit favorite at home against the Patriots next week. And we won't get a sense for just how much this team has really grown until probably week 18, but more than likely not until the second week of January. We're not even at New Year's yet. So can this Bills team sustain these good vibes for the next month? And it's kind of funny because there was a stench around this team after the postseason failure against Cincinnati, right? Everybody said, well, the defense, and well, it's McDermott's defense, but it was Leslie Frazier that took the leave of absence after the Super Bowl. And everyone was like, wait a minute, this is a really good defense. Why is Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator last year, leaving? And then we read the story about McDermott this year, and we kind of figure it out that, you know, Leslie Frazier was the guy that got the push out the door for all the bad things that happened. This year, it was Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator. There's always this, you know, level of protection away from Sean McDermott, and McDermott took a lot of heat. Well, credit to the Bills. They rallied around that heat. They overcame that adversity. They beat the Chiefs. Can that carry you all the way to the Super Bowl? Again, that game took place on December 10th. Can everything go well for the next 2 months that this team is able to dodge all of these landmines that Brian's alluding to, the turnovers and Josh Allen's headspace and Sean McDermott's, it's a lot. And I think it might be too much to overcome, but right now, they're in a really good position.
It's
but
too much.
We won't know anything for another month.
It's too much. They're not going to do it.
I agree. I would tend to agree with you, but you never know. It's the NFL.